Hey Josh,
Hey, how's it going?
good and you? You can hear me?
Yes, I can. Thank you very much for taking the time to do this interview.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
Oh, very much so. And it's great to be able to talk to you and be able to talk about a great new album that's coming out already 2 weeks from today through Frontiers Music.
Yeah, I cannot believe it. I think it's the first time in my life that I can finally make an album the year after the last. Yeah.
Wow, that's so great. So, thinking about that, I mean, how does that feel for you, knowing that it's coming out within a year's time of the previous album?
It's honestly very important for me because, first of all, it's always been my dream. But my reality was that before to have that type of label, I was kind of on myself when it came to producing albums. So a lot of love money was involved, and by love money, I mean obviously my family helping me to pay. I remember my first album on Lyric Metal. I had to work a daily job and then take a loan at the end to produce the record. I mean, it's been the story of my life. I've always worked hard for years before I could make an album, and obviously, the fact that now Frontiers is behind me, well, yeah, it makes things way easier, so to speak.
Oh, for sure. And there's such a great label too. It's a very rich, diverse label that Frontiers is a part of, and it's great to see that they're continuing the support of your work and being able to continue to promote you as much they're able to.
Yeah, I've been surprised because I'm not typically heavy metal or melodic, I am really into progressive rock. This music, this album is really, I mean, compared to my debut was progressive metal. But I am doing more towards the rock side of things, and they offered full support. Actually, I had 100% freedom to do whatever I want. We didn't have any request to change anything, which is yeah, pretty amazing. We could do the album the way we wanted it from beginning to end, and this is very cool.
So, thinking about that a little bit deeper, what was it like to start with this new album?
Um, I think I wanted to try to do things a bit different because until now, each of my albums was kind of like me composing music, coming up with even guitar riffs, bass lines, drum grooves. And I think for the first time, I was like, you know what, I'm gonna just make a structure, play some piano, some percussion stuff, and I will let the guys come up with their stuff. And for example, Duke Walters, who played guitar on my first album, now is playing guitar and bass on this one, and I let him like do whatever he wanted, to come up with his own guitar riffs, bass lines, and I think it I hope people can hear that there is some kind of cohesion. As a result, it sounds more like a band as opposed to me making a project and having people come up with the exact stuff I write. Yeah. So
Yeah, and
it was the end girl I chose for this one.
yeah, and I was gonna say it really does have that feel that everyone is really in control of what they're doing on
Mm,
this album. It's just like hearing all these different kinds of influences that are different
yeah.
from yours, but they fit together so perfectly well
Mm,
together as well too. So, the fact
yeah.
that it can sound heavier at times, it can sound more progressive at times, poppier at times. It really has a great range behind it.
Yeah, thank you so much. This is a great compliment, because music is music. There are always gonna be some people who doesn't like an album, or maybe they like a song or two. And I mean, I'm the same. I'm following a lot of bands. For example, I love Yes, but I don't love all of their records. I have some peaks here and there. And the most important for me is that people can at least hear the intention, and the intention is exactly this: to sound more like a band and less like a project. And this is why I've wanted no guest on the album at all, like zero guest, only the five of us. And yeah, this cohesiveness, this band feeling was the most important for me.
Oh, yeah, and it definitely pays off. The more that I listen to it, the more intricate I can hear everything going together. The different layers that happens throughout all of the songs. Like the more that you listen to it, the more details that you're able to pick up on it, which are
Mm,
always my
thank
favorite
you so
kind of
much.
albums when I can go back and I can pick up something different every time I listen to it.
Well, I should say that it happens to me too, which is funny because I'm supposed to be the guy who made the album, but the fact that I let the other guys come up with their own stuff and I didn't mix the album, it was mixed by Jelly, the drummer. And sometimes I'm just listening the album and I catch some little details or harmonics or things that the guys have done. And surprisingly, it didn't catch my attention the first time, and I was there. You know, I was in Jelly Studio listening to the stuff, but yeah, I'm still discovering details in my own album. So yeah, it's kind of cool.
Oh, very much so. So, thinking of that, like, how did that affect your playing, knowing that the rest of the band was coming up with their own ideas and influences on the album? Like, how did you uh, approach this to be able to complement what they're doing?
I think I saw it kind of like a game, you know. It's like imagine a game in which you know you're gonna pass the ball or what you are doing to somebody else, and I kind of knew it from the beginning that I wanted to let, for example, Jude come up with the guitars and everything. So I would do some stuff, not knowing exactly what he was gonna come up with, and I would forward this to him, and it would be like an anticipation game. I was curious and thinking, wow, I'm really wondering what kind of stuff he's gonna do on it. And to be honest, it's really exciting. It's not like when you write music by yourself, you know, I imagine when you're a movie composer, you write a part for the orchestra, yeah, you kind of expect how it's gonna sound. You kind of know in advance. But there was this kind of completely random and chaotic element to it. And that's also maybe the reason why I can more easily listen to this album compared to my previous one, because I don't hear myself, I hear all of those guys. It's more like I can take a step back and hear it like I would hear another band, you know? Yeah.
Yeah. So, thinking about that as well too, like, obviously giving them free reign to be able to come up with their work. Like, when did it start to feel like it was all coming together in the right direction?
I think, to be honest, from the very first songs that I received with guitars on, I kind of got the vibe, you know. I saw where this was going because the first song that Jube recorded were kind of, like the opener to this Yes album called Going for the One with all those American guitar slides, you know. And it was like a special texture or color. And I kind of had in my mind immediately a glimpse of what would be the style of the record, you know, the kind of textures it would have. And again, I must insist on it, but I think that this sharing process was really important for that. It's like we were just some guys inspiring each other, you know. They would send me something back and I would expand on those ideas and add more textures to it or stuff. It's like a really a collaborative effort. But yeah, from the very first tracks, like the two first songs, I was like, okay, I understand what we are doing.
I'm glad to see how it did come together that way right from the beginning, and everyone just understood what was going on here, working towards the same goal. And even if it didn't
Yeah.
go in, I mean, it's hard to predict what direction it could necessarily go into, but the final product and seeing the way that it came out and everyone being so satisfied with the way that it came out, that has to be such a great feeling.
Yeah, exactly. And that's also the reason, you know, that we are all gonna go on tour together now. Even if we are gonna play songs other than Lalu, you know, with Damian, we are gonna play songs from his times in Threshold, Arion, and stuff like that. But I should say that those two albums made us kind of more tightened, you know, as a unit, even though it's supposed to be a band project, right? It was a project in the beginning. And it's funny that this project with this band of guys on that record are doing more, and then they kind of start going on the road, you know, to yeah, with the same lineup. But yeah, I really like all of those guys, and I think we soon really cool together. But again, taste and colors, yeah.
Oh, very cool. And one thing that really makes this album stand out to me is the concept of the album, where I
Mm.
really appreciate how, from beginning to end, it really does feel like a rich tapestry of conceptual ideas. I mean, right from the beginning, you can get the idea of what's going on, and it goes all the way to the end. Like, where did that come from?
Well, I will be honest, everything which is conceptual, lyrics and stuff really comes from Damien. He's really very creative, and I leave him complete freedom to come up with whatever lines and lyrics he wants. Like, we were taking care of the music literally and letting him take care of all this other side. Like, he even used this as an opportunity to continue the narrative of the previous album, to continue to expand on the themes and topics and the characters introduced in the last record. And of course, a lot of it is kind of cryptic. You got to really read between the lines, and not everything is given to you on a platter. But I think he did a really cool job, and especially on the song where he literally was reading the phone book. That was also a cool experiment. I mean, Damien is very creative, and I think it's very important for me to have a writing partner who can literally come up with everything for themselves, and not having everything written for them. And so I'm very lucky to have somebody like him to take this music and obviously elevate it to another level, because without vocals, it would be just, some weird prog instrumental music. And he's giving it a very important dimension, I think.
Oh, I
Yeah,
definitely agree. And Damien is one of the best vocalists of the style, and I've always
yeah,
loved his lyrical concepts. The instrumentation that he does in other projects and bands that he's a part of is just
yeah,
incredible as well too. So the fact that you have that chemistry together to be able to continue working the way that you do, it's an incredible
yeah,
find.
yeah. I am. That's why I say that I'm very lucky to be collaborating with him. And a lot of people don't know, but he's. I mean, I could spend hours with him on the phone speaking about any topics. He's a real thinker. He has a lot of very interesting views. And he's actually a fascinating guy. And most people, they hear him, they hear his vocals, but his thoughts are really cool too. I love to speak to him, and it's also a part of the inspiration. It also motivates you and triggers some stuff when you are an artist. Sometimes, because yeah, we are on the era of social media, and it's like we think we are connected to friends and family and everybody on social media, but the truth is that a lot of times we feel really disconnected. We are supposed to be all connected, but there are so many times we feel disconnected, and it's so great to be able sometimes to just sit down with somebody and speak for hours on any topic. And I really like that. And Jupe is the same. I can speak with Jupe on phone forever, for hours, or sit in a place with him and coffee and discuss with him, like I'm doing right now. I'm discussing with her to stop. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
it's really important.
It is, and I'm glad that you have those uh, groups of people in the projects and bands that you're a part of, and of course in real
Yeah.
life as well too. It's always important to have friends and family, people
Mm.
that you work with that you can have those connections with. And as we've experienced over the last several years alone, some of that can be taken
Mm.
away from us, and the fact that we're slowly getting back into that, where we're able to see each other in person again, or some kind of technology like we're using right now where we can even see each other face to face even if we're
Yeah, yeah.
not really there. I mean, that's so much more important than just reading text, at least for me
Yeah,
anyways.
exactly. Yeah, exactly. And I think that sometimes we need also some things to happen to be some kind of a transformative experience to us. And I guess we all have a different journey in life. But I was a guy back in the day when I made my first album. I was a real loner. Like, I would be like, no, I will write my music alone. Only me, myself, know what I want to do. And I was not at all a band guy. That's why I think I wrote 2 albums for this German singer called Ubi Meisel, who was fronting a band called Dreamscape back in the day. And like from the very beginning, I was like, I wanted to work alone. And now, like 20 years after, I am almost a complete different person. Now I am going towards other. I send them stuff. I want them to do their own thing with it. I communicate a lot with other people. And I didn't realize it was little by little, but I've changed completely over the years. And well, I think this is also what brought me to this way of doing this album. It's like a part of this transformative process. And it's funny because it's kind of a way to document it, like if I listen myself to my first album, it was really what you hear is really the demo I had made here with all my keyboards and everything, my guitarists, everything. It was me, and now it's the part of so many people. And we are going out playing this music together. So yeah, a lot has changed.
Oh yeah, and I can definitely experience that for myself as well too, especially over the years of doing interviews. I was very much a loner as well when I first started. I
Mm,
even had a really hard time talking to people in person
mm.
because
I
I
understand,
just had
man. Yeah,
yeah, I just couldn't be able to speak. I just got so nervous. And now I can have conversations for hours now just because I feel so
yeah,
much more comfortable with it. I've learned so much about myself. I've learned so much about other people. And it feels so nice to be able to have like real conversations with people doing something
yeah,
like this and just really getting into the depths of things because it's just great to be able to have that shared experience, even if it's different roads people take. There's always connections and it's always great to be able to build on those.
yeah, exactly. I mean, and I understand that it's very difficult. I mean, sometimes I remember it being tough. And I think the thing that we have as humans is that a lot of times, I mean, I know that I was such a loner that I wanted to deal with my problems myself. I couldn't tell them to other people. And it ended up being really bad at some point. And I think the thing I was the most afraid of is change. I was afraid to change, afraid to go to others and to just do things and go out there. And it was really challenging. But when I was out there and I did it, I was like, man, it was not so traumatizing after all. It's like as humans, we are always afraid of change. And finally, you realize when you made a change, it was most of times, because sometimes it happens that bad changes happen to you, but most of times I would say it's for the better, and you realize like, wow, it wasn't so bad as I thought it would be. And yeah, and again, progressive music is all about change anyway. And yeah, but yeah, I mean, it's all a transformative experience. I cannot imagine somebody starting at one point in life and being the exact same person like 20 years after. I think at least if you make yourself violence and you try to get out there and fight this, I think that you follow some kind of transformative journey and you would be another person when you arrive at the destination. And it always amuses me whenever I see the sci-fi movie with people speaking to their past selves. It's like with time travel and stuff. Man, there are so many stuff I wished I knew that I would tell to myself years before. It's something that's constantly on my mind every fucking day. I'm like, if only I was finding some kind of a door to the past and I could speak to my former self. There are so many things I would say. Yeah.
So, thinking about that, what would be the biggest thing that you would want to say to your former self?
To not be afraid of just do it, of just do things, because here's the thing, it's like in life we have the tendency to not do something until we feel that we are ready. Like, for example, if I want to make a podcast, I will say, oh, I'm not sure I'm good at it. My voice is maybe not that great. I will wait until I feel more comfortable, and I will wait until I have the money to buy this microphone and to do this and to buy that. And in the end, you never do stuff. And it's much better, it's way better, even if it's lame in the beginning. Just do it, just go there, challenge yourself, you do something. And in the end, it might not be the best album. It might not be whatever people do, the best drawing or whatever is your passion in life. I think the most important is the start and to just continue and to have this fire and, naturally just follow this progression, this journey. And you get so many stuff done and it brings you so much. And I've lost too many years, man, sometimes between albums, like 7 years to make an album, 8 years. And a lot of times for the wrong reasons. And not even mentioning my private life stuff, but it's been sometimes, yeah, I wished I wouldn't wait for some things in my life. Yeah.
I can very much relate to that, both on a personal matter, work wise, music wise. I mean, there's so much I can relate to that feeling. But, I'm so glad that you've at least reached that point where you can realize that and you're able to continue that on to the future. And, that learning aspect of just getting to start. And there's going to be so many mistakes that happen, so many things that you wish you could change. But the fact that you're
Mm.
able to learn from those and be able to continue on rather than have it just be over and never be able to happen again, that you can progress, you're able to do the next
Exactly.
album and learn from
Mm.
everything from what you've learned from the past. And I
Exactly.
imagine,
Mm.
like, even with this newest album, there's things that you've
Mm.
learned from it that you're going to be able to transfer
Yes,
into the next release, and that's so important in
completely.
life.
Yeah, completely. You're totally right. I already have in mind. I wouldn't say it's mistakes. It's like I didn't knew better at the time, but okay, each time I would make a record or anything, I'm like, okay, I could have done this thing better or different. And sometimes I see also it's a matter of process because you are doing some things for the first time and you learn at the same time because everything in life is like a learning opportunity. And you're like, okay, next time I want to do it more like this or like that. And indeed, you're totally right. These thoughts were literally on my mind yesterday and the day before. Yeah.
Oh, very much so. So, thinking about that, like, are you thinking about the next release yet, or are you just continuing to promote this album, or what's going on with you right now?
Yeah, I would love to continue on this rhythm and finish the next album next year to have it as a release, next year. It would be great. So I've been starting to think about it. I have some ideas. I know that the guys are totally going for it because when we were out of Jelly Studio, we were already talking about being ready to write the next one. And I already want to improve some things in the process. Like, for example, I said before, it was like made the music and then we gave it to Damien. And then I realized that by doing that, for example, if Damien likes a part in particular and want to expand on this part, or if he has more ideas, then we cannot change things at this stage because it's like he's writing over a piece which is already finished. And for example, this is one of the angles, one of the approaches I want to change on the next album, and maybe introduce Damian earlier, in the process, while we are actually writing those songs before they are kind of closed. And this and so many other thoughts, and that's great, to be honest. It's like exciting, it's like a challenge, and the best part, to be honest, is just writing the music. It's so much fun. The composition process, the compositional aspect of writing music, it's what I prefer. Maybe that's my point of view, as a music composer, but it's really my favorite part. So I'm excited to go again into that songwriting mode.
Yeah, and I'm very excited to see what will come of that as well too. Again, like everything is a learning experience, and everything that you've learned from this album, being able to expand upon it, take away whatever the case will be for the next release. I'm very excited to see what will happen with that.
Yeah, thank you very much. I think I also sometimes check what's the reaction of people, and why you shouldn't really do what people want. I do sometimes check social media after the album is released and see what people think, and if there are things they liked, if there are things they don't like, and especially if there are things they would like that they didn't get. For example, after Paint the Sky, a lot of people asked for an epic track, for classic long progressive tune. And I was like, okay, maybe I will do one or two longer songs, you know. Yeah, you know, I try to to be a pleaser too, you know, to because you got to listen what people want, you know. It's like a relationship, you know. They buy your records, they buy your music, and they are kind of telling you, ah, I would like this, I would like that. So I guess it will be also important to see what people think of this one, and yeah, in complete objectivity, you know, have some pointers for the next one, you know. It doesn't mean that we will follow people's feedback, you know, or stuff like that, but sometimes it does give some pointers.
Oh, definitely. And if you feel like the next album has to be progressive death metal, that's the direction that you need to go into.
Well, you know, I was smiling earlier when you mentioned the guys being musicians in different style and coming together on this record because, for example, this is something that Jelly, my drummer, would love, you know. Jelly is the perfect drummer for a grind metal core band, a death metal, whether he could play in Strapping Young Lad, you know. Fear Factory, he made an amazing cover of Fear Factory. If you look Jelly's YouTube channel, he made an incredible cover of that. And that's so funny to have him drum on this type of, yes, Genesis albums, you know. And I guess a lot of the heaviness comes from these two, you know. And but that's the funny thing is that in my private life, I listen to a lot of extreme stuff. You know, I was mentioning Strapping and Lad, but I'm the guy when I was a young kid. You know, of course, I was listening to Genesis and all those bands. But when I was at high school, I was listening to Death with Chuck Schuldiner. You know, I was fan of Sepultura. I was listening Emperor, Cradle. You know, all the stuff. I mean, the 90s were amazing. It's one of my favorite musical period. Everybody is about the 80s and 70s, but the 90s for me were like mind-blowing. And I love, for example, the music that Izan is doing from Emperor. It's fucking brilliant. And I love Devin Townsend. I love when he grows. I love the atmosphere. And I saw the Ziltoid in the background here. I love it.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, and so I could see myself to do something like this, but maybe outside of Lalu, because on the last album it's like I made a reboot of this project, which is turning into a band, you know, this band project, and I went completely in one direction, like old school progressive rock, you know. And but there again, you never know what the next album could bring. It's progressive, who knows? But I would love to make one cool extreme album. I mean, if you listen to my first album on lyric metal, some moments were real heavy on it. Um, I've always been into this side of things, but yeah, I don't know. The older I am getting, and when it comes to compose music, I start to compose a lot. Like I don't know if it's a weird thing because I am very nostalgic about my childhood, and I am in this vibe where I think about vinyl recordings, you know, 70s and stuff like that. I don't know if it's the fact that I'm growing older. And I mentioned Devin Townsend, but I think it's kind of the same. Devin is I mean, as as much older he gets, and as much more mellow he is as a songwriter. But I love heavy music and extreme metal and stuff like that.
Oh yeah, and I would love to see you do something in that style again. But the fact that you still are able to appreciate it in your personal life, whether you do something with it in the future, would be awesome to see. But taking the progressive route as well too, and getting
Mm,
people like you mentioned Jelly, like the fact that he's doing like classic progressive rock on this album is such a cool thing to see, and
yeah.
just seeing that diversity that everyone is able to show off all of what they're capable of, all the tools of their trade. And I'm glad to see that you're able to do that in your own life as well too. And I'm just so excited for everything that'll come in the future, because if this is what you're doing right now and you want to be able to expand on the progressive side, maybe the extreme side, maybe any other thing that hasn't come up yet, I would love to see what you're going to be doing in the future.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I think, uh, like I said before, I think I should do it. I think you are motivating me to do it. Like I said, if we leave it for later, we will never do it. And I should say, like, fuck it, I'm doing it. I always dreamed to make an album in that style, and I have the perfect people to do it. I should go in that direction one time or do something like this. Yeah, I would love that. I miss very much to do stuff in the style of what I was doing when I started, and even more. Like, yeah, to be honest, I was very sad when Devin stopped strapping on lead. It was like one of my fave bands ever, but whatever.
And I think he ended on with strapping. I thought the New Black was just a spectacular album, and if it had to be the last one, I thought it was a great finishing point for the band.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. I think he kind of associated this part of his life, to some kind of what he calls negativity or something, which I can understand because it's aggressive music still, it has dark overtones and stuff. But in some kind of way, they were like some kind of precursors because when you listen to all this type of cyber metal music, I mean, if you play a game like Cyberpunk and you have some strapping in lad playing like an album like City or something, like man, it fits perfectly, and it was so much ahead of its time.
It's funny
Yeah,
because I actually am playing Cyberpunk right now. Like I'm doing
yeah,
a new run
awesome.
through of it. They just upgraded everything, so I'm like going back through it, and yeah,
Oh
like
man,
Strapping on Light is like the perfect soundtrack to that.
oh that's great. I've done two on truths, and I saw the 2.0 update, and I'm like, oh man, I cannot try it now because I have to prepare for the Damian Wilson tour. But you can be sure that as soon as I'm back, I'm gonna give it a try.
Oh, it's well worth it. It's so much smoother now that it barely crashes at all. Like it, and they've added so many new things to it. It's well worth it once you get back from tour.
Yeah, that's amazing. I mentioned the 80s before. That's because I lived the 80s all the way from the age of 2 years old until 12. So I'm really like an 80s kid, kind of like my whole childhood until I became an adolescent was in the 80s. So it's been like probably the most influencing years of my life, my early life. And of course, video games in those times were everything. And I grew up, yeah, it's one of my flaws. I am a gamer, and yeah, but it's cool. I mean, I think everybody my age who's listening to this can relate.
Oh yeah, I definitely can relate as well too, and it's it's a great way to be able to escape as well too, like being able to get
Yeah.
lost into different worlds, and I think that's really good for the human psyche as well too, like just to
Mm.
escape even for like an hour or two a day, just like being able to escape like what you're dealing with in normal life, and just being able to explore a new world.
Yeah, I think that's interesting you mentioned that because I think it was last month at some point I was thinking about stuff, and I was like, man, when I think about it, all those video games adventure you are living now, they are written like real good. Like if you play a game, like it doesn't matter if it's a Skyrim or Elden Ring or Cyberpunk or Witcher or whatever, they are written so well and so immersive. It's like by playing all of them, it's like you had many lives, like you lived many adventures. And nobody could say that in normal times. Like if you were born and you lived 80 years ago, you had one life and that's it. You couldn't experience anything else, like an adventure in space, for example, or in some kind of a fantasy setting. And I think that's really cool when you are a person who like escapism. Like I say, I was such a loner. Video games were a way for me to find sometimes a better world or another world that I would fit in or I would feel good in. And I have so much memories of that. Like I know that before people say that I'm crazy, I know that they were not real life experience, but they brought so much, man. Uh, I can remember many games and adventures and stuff, and I think it really enriched my life to a point without even talking of the inspiration from music, from video game music. It's because we speak about bands since the beginning and influence, but video game music was like a big influence on me and still is.
Oh, absolutely. And I mean, there's so many aspects that you can look at that, like the story writing, the music, the landscape, everything that goes on with it. I mean, for people that don't enjoy it, they might not ever understand. But for those that do enjoy it, they can completely understand that, and it can be such an influence on their life. And I love that it has been an impact on you, and whether that's coming through the music, whether it's just like helping you through hard times, whether you just enjoy playing a game. There's so many great aspects of it.
Yeah, exactly. People tend to say the opposite. They tend to say to kids, don't play games, it's bad for you, don't do this and that. And I think on the contrary, it can be really important and really helpful. And I remember that, again, without to expand on details, when I was a kid, I was already seeing a psychologist at school for some problems. And the first thing that the psychologist did with me is it was to make me play some kind of role-playing games and expose situations to me and literally like play a game, what you would do next and this and that. And it helped me so much, man. And it was kind of the same thing as the video game version we have now. But then at high school, I played myself some pen and paper RPGs, Those also have been accused of the worst thing you can imagine. But I think they are really important and they are really good. And again, for somebody like me who was a loner, this was also very important because you could be in a team with other people, and it's like okay, I didn't have it like South Park, with this World of Warcraft episode with no, you can't be the dwarf because I'm the dwarf. We didn't have this kind of thing, but I like the fact that somebody was a thief, the other was the magician, somebody else was the warrior, and somebody was the priest and was healing other people, and it already kind of introduced those concepts of teamwork, and this is really cool. Yeah,
Oh,
love
very cool. Yeah, for sure. Unfortunately, I see Zoom's telling me that I have
it.
just a
A
little bit of
limited
time left.
time.
So,
Yeah,
just to bring things back, of course, The Fish You Wanted to Be King coming out in 2 weeks from Frontiers Music. This has been an awesome time being able to talk to you, being able to have a great conversation with you about music, life, gaming, all these things that mean so much to me, and being able to have this shared experience. And I just want to thank you again so very much for taking the time to do this.
I know. Thank you, Josh. Thank you for having me and taking time to speak
Oh,
about this music.
Oh, absolutely. And it means a lot. I thoroughly enjoy the album, and I love seeing uh, the way that your life musically has gone. Just like looking at every single album and seeing the changes and the growth that has happened. And like I keep saying, I can't wait to see what's going to be going on in the future. Because again, if this is what you're doing now, and whether you do some more extreme stuff, uh, in the future, whether you continue on the progressive rock route, whether you go into other ventures, I'm so excited to see where you go from here.
Thank you so much, and it's really motivating. We don't pay the rent yet with this style of music, as you imagine. So to have this kind of encouraging words mean everything, and that's the thing that keeps us going. Because to be honest, that's the point for everything anyway, is to keep going and not give up. And I think that's the best word to finish this, like never give up, never surrender, like a Galaxy Quest, great movie.
That's right. Couldn't
Mm.
agree more. Perfect note to end on. Before it cuts off, thank you again for taking the time to do this, and I hope you have a great rest of the day.
Welcome, my friend. Speak
Thank you.
soon. Huh? Bye. Have a
Bye
beautiful